Hi, my name is Justin Alfonso, and I'll be showing you how to set up PatrolShift Bid Scheduler version 4. To get started, there's really only two requirements you need for your host machine. You need Docker, because the server and all of its other services run inside of Docker containers, and Node, which is used for building the front-end client that runs in the browser. Some other recommended stuff that you should have is MySQL Workbench, so you can interact with the database when it's on. And I would strongly recommend Visual Studio Code with the PHP debug and PHP IntelliFence extensions, just to make your life a little bit easier when you're developing. So to get the server started, you just need to take a look at the docker compose.yaml file, which is in the root of the project. And in here you'll see the services that are required to run the project. There's Nginx, which is the web server, which runs on port 8080. So this is what actually handles the web request and forwards them to the app service. There's MySQL, which is the database. And then there's Redis, which is another database, but it's an in-memory database, mostly used for caching and queuing for the app service. The app service is built using a Docker file, which is in the Docker folder. And it takes two arguments, which is the UID and GID, the user and group ID of the host user. This only matters on Unix systems. It preserves POSIX permissions in the server folder because the directory is mirrored into the container. So to get your current ID and user ID, you just use ID. And you can see here I'm 1000 and 1000. So just fill those in before you build your image. So to build your image, you would run docker compose build and then the name of the service, which is app in this case, and that'll run through and build your application. So once that's built, you can go ahead and bring all of the containers online using docker compose up and -d to run it in headless mode so it doesn't eat up your console. So you'll be able to see that those services are running on their respective ports. So port 8080 has the application, but there's a few things we need to do to get the application in a working state from nothing like this. So the easiest way to do that is to open up a shell inside of the application service. So docker compose exec app, and then we want to use the shell, but we want to use the login shell. So we use tac-l to do that. So now we have a shell running inside of the container. So from here, what we want to do is make sure we have all of our dependencies installed. So Composer is like npm, but for PHP. So that just makes sure that you have all your dependencies installed. So the next thing we want to do is copy over the environment file. So there is an example file, but this is like where all your secrets and stuff are, so this should never be published inside the repository. So now we have a .env file. And one thing we need to do is generate an encryption key for the application. So again, this is one of those secrets that you wouldn't want to publish. So you do key generate. And then we want to migrate the database, so we have all of our tables and everything. And then for development, you can seed the database with some dummy data with the seeders that we have prepared, just to get quickly up and running. So there is a shortcut that was developed in order to do all of that back to back. So it's just composer dev setup. So it'll run through, it'll copy the environment file, install the packages, do the migrations, seed the database, so just to make it a little bit faster. So after that, you'll see that the application is running on port 8080 and it's serving the front end client. So the front end client here built is static. So what you want to do is, to develop the client, you want to go into the front end folder, inside, front end here, and then you run npm run start, and this uses React, so it has all those scripts, and that runs on port 3000. So once that's done building, you can then develop the application and it'll refresh whenever you make changes to the front end client. So the front end client just sends API requests to the back end, and the back end just responds. So the front end, all it does is serve a single web page, which has the React client in it. So those two are pretty much separated.